Jaguar Malaysia introduced the I-Pace sometime in March of 2023. And even though it's been introduced to the world back in 2018 and took some time to get here, I'm kind of glad that it did, because this, the I-Pace, is an amazing car, not only to drive, but to look at. Now, Jaguar actually created an EV from the ground up rather than changing the powertrain of an existing car into a full-blown EV. And I'm kind of glad that they took that approach, because the ultimate result is this, a very good-looking car. Hey guys, we'd just like to take a couple of seconds to tell you about the BH Petrol's loyalty program. Now this is unlike any other loyalty program out there because it does not require you to carry the card. That is simply very hard to find, especially when you need it the most. Now with BH Petrol, all you need to do is download an application, go to BH Petrol, pour your petrol, take a receipt and simply scan it with your application. You get 1 e-point for every litre that you pour. So the next time you're at BH Petrol, be sure to download the BH Petrol Loyalty Program application and you can immediately start to collect your points and later redeem it for the many rewards that they have. In terms of design, it's still very much a Jaguar, but still this, for example, is a fake grille. Even though it's in line with Jaguar's design language, it's basically a fake grille because obviously there's no engine for it to cool, so there's no need for a real grille. But however, it does have some really cool aerodynamic features which gives it a drag coefficient somewhere between the 0.22 region. So it's actually a very slippery car, which EVs naturally have to be. It has some aerodynamic functions such as the one that you're seeing over here. Let me demonstrate. Yeah, that's basically what it's for. So air actually goes up through here and goes over the car. There's actually another spoiler which I'll show you shortly, and basically that's what all these aerodynamic features are there for. There's also one over here as well that comes out through the side. Very cool. Then if you come to the side here, you basically get these door handles that when you press this button sit flush with the body. That's a really cool feature as well. No, it doesn't have that welcome feature as well. It doesn't just pop out every time you walk up to the car. You have to still go and press this button. And then over here as well, you get another aerodynamic feature which lets the air just sort of just flow over the car rather than creating dirty vortexes that not only increase drag but make the interior noisy. Since we're at the back here, you also get a massive boot. Good enough for about 2 golf bags, I reckon. And then you get more storage space over here. This is basically for your toolkit, and that's it. And at the bottom here, you get a functional diffuser, which basically sits at the very end of a very flat underbody floor. The HSE variant rolls on 20-inch wheels and they're wrapped in Goodyear SUV tires, Goodyear Eagle F1 SUV tires to be precise. These are not your regular EV tires. These are just very regular, everyday kind of tires which you can use for almost every other car. So the compound on this is actually softer than the EV tires, which means that it's actually contributing to a quieter cabin. Now EV tires have a harder carcass to reduce rolling resistance, whereas this one, well, because it's softer, it also lasts a little bit longer as well, and it contributes to a quieter cabin as well. And it's also actually quite spacious at the back here for rear passengers. They get their own heated or ventilated seats. There's no reason to use heated seats in Malaysia, but this is a CBU unit, so yes, you get heated or ventilated seats. And these gorgeous sports bucket seats are they look good even from the back here. And the nice thing about these seats is the fact that they're not overly enormous. like that of let's say a Golf GTI, which basically completely, you get no forward vision at all. But with this, it's actually quite comfortable. I can actually still look at the front, and besides that though, the air conditioning vents are placed at the side here rather than at the bottom here, which in my opinion is the correct place to actually place your air conditioning vents, because these are going to be cooling you and your face rather than having them down here, which will only cool your knee. You also get two Type-C USB slots at the back here and a 12-watt socket, some storage space at the back here, and more cup holders as well. So even though it has a big boot, the I-Pace doesn't really have a frunk. It has enough space for the cables, but not much else. Perhaps a laptop bag or briefcase or such, or maybe some unfolded clothes, but that's about it. Now, the I-Pace is not just a regular car. Jaguar calls it a mid-size performance SUV. But when you view it from this angle, there's nothing SUV about it. In fact, it looks like a really big hot hatch. An SUV usually has a taller ride height. But here's the catch. Because the Jaguar I-Pace comes with air suspension, that also means that it's adjustable. The ride height of the I-Pace is adjustable. Let me demonstrate. So the ride height you're seeing now is called access height, which makes it easy to get in and out, which means that the I-Pace is actually at its lowest setting. Let's explore how high it can go. Now this is the normal ride height of the Jaguar I-Pace. It goes higher though. Now is the off-road height. Now it looks like a proper SUV, and the Jaguar I-Pace has a wading depth of 500 millimeters. So 500 millimeters is actually amazing, which also it's almost at par with some pickup trucks as well. Now, look at it. It's quite tall, and now it looks like a proper SUV. Inside the I-Pace, it's just wow. It's a really nice place to be in, and I'm not over exaggerating. Guys, this is a car that after all was introduced to the world back in 2018. Now, it took some time for it to get here. It took very long for it to get here, in fact, simply because of our infrastructure, our taxes and such. So hence why it took some time to get here. But boy, am I kind of glad that it actually did, even though I can't afford this car. It cost 498,800 ringgit, roughly just 200 ringgit short of 500,000, which is a lot of money. But let's check out what you're getting for that kind of money. You're getting this huge panoramic roof, which does a really good job at keeping the sun out of the cabin. It's hot, but you don't really feel it inside the cabin. And if you do kind of get hot inside here, the seats are ventilated. And get this, you can actually, watch this, you can actually adjust the temperature of the seat. Now it's -3, it's plus -2, -1, and then after that it goes to heat, which you don't want to touch in the current Malaysian climate. So I have my seat cooler on, seat ventilation on, and this, I haven't seen any other car that can actually adjust the sort of the settings. Perhaps because the rest of the cars have a button, first, second, third. I can't really remember which car at the moment, but yeah, that is really cool. And if you've noticed, this is actually a tiny screen. That is very, very nice. Lexus has something like this as well, but that's located here. Anyway, this is for your temperature settings and such. So you adjust your air conditioning over here, and this is a 10-inch screen, this is 5-inch screen. So over here is where you get all your information about the car, your entertainment, everything actually is based over here, is located over here. So this is basically your main screen, and then you get an 11-inch screen over here as part of your meter panel. So that is, as a car, is just amazing. And get this is actually a charge pad over here. And the thing about charge pads is that either they're really grippy or they're not. But Jaguar has gone one step ahead and created these two things over here. You can keep stuff over here, but your phone will take some getting used to actually place over here, so it's easier to just place it from the side. But anyway, what I'm trying to get to is that when you accelerate, keep in mind that this car has 696 Newton meters of torque. Let's just round that up to 700. So when you're charging your phone and you step on the throttle on the accelerator, the phone's going to go flying. But because of this design, kind of holds your phone in place. Besides that, this is your gear selector. This is very cool. Aston Martin is another car manufacturer that has button-like gear selector, but that is of course placed on the dashboard. These are all your controls. This is your mode selector, traction control. And because we are riding in the HSE model, it actually comes with air suspension. So what these two buttons do is that it adjusts the ride height of the car. So you can actually increase it by up to 500 millimeters. That's the maximum height that it'll go to. 500 millimeters, guys. That is fantastic for it to actually wade through perhaps small floods and such. And just for reference, if I'm not mistaken, it's the Isuzu D-Max or the Ford Ranger, one of those pickup trucks, and that has a wading depth of 800 millimeters. Not bad for an all-electric medium SUV. So this is, Jaguar calls it a medium-sized performance SUV. With those kind of numbers, 400 PS and 696 Newton meters of torque, yes, it's quite performance-oriented. 0 to 100, 4.8 seconds, amazing. And then you also get Meridian sound systems. I think this is 11 speakers, but that's not all. It's a surround sound system, and there are speakers up here. This is a speaker. So other than that though, it's just such a nice, wonderful place to be in. Actually, get this. This is suede. This is like suede material over here. This is amazing. So it actually makes it feel really nice. And since we are here, check out the sport seats. These are some sexy seats, man. And the thing about small bucket seats like this is that you don't come across ventilated bucket seats very often. So the fact that they're ventilated just make them that much more awesome. Yeah. A lot of fun in here. Really looking forward to driving this thing. In fact, I drove it earlier. I'll tell you that it's just one of those cars. I'm not really a big fan of EVs. Of course, power is always there. I'll be the first one to admit that power from EVs is just fantastic. But range is a big issue for me. Cars represent freedom. For me personally, cars represent freedom. And if I wanted to pack my bags, quit my job, pack my family into the car and go for a road trip to London, from Kuala Lumpur to London, I can do that in a petrol car. I can't yet do that in an ICE, in a EV. But that's not what EVs are for. EVs are for clean commuting, and doing that in an I-Pace, I can live with this on a day-to-day basis. Let's take it for a drive. All right, so let's talk about data and tech. So the Jaguar I-Pace, 90 kilowatt per hour battery, WLTP range of 470 kilometers. Jaguar claims a combined WLTP range of 407 to 470 kilometers. So that is undoubtedly impressive. The great thing about this car is, of course, the power that it produces. But before we talk about that, let's talk about charging. If you have an AC charger, be prepared for a 0 to 100 charging time of over 8.5 hours. But if you have access to DC charging, the I-Pace can take up to 100 kilowatts. So if you have access to that, 10 to 80% will take you about 40 minutes. So in that sense, it's not bad, it's not spectacular, it's just a lot of electric cars have that kind of capacity. But a lot of electric cars do not do this. Mother-in-law. So acceleration is fantastic. 4.8 seconds, 0 to 100. You may not be impressed, but get this. That is the acceleration figure for a car that weighs 2.2 tons. Amazing. Anyway, power is transferred to both axles because this is a twin motor EV. And that just means that it makes it an all-wheel drive car. So that also means that it's actually quite planted in corners, and aiding all that suspension and aiding power delivery is this air suspension that the I-Pace comes fitted with. The HSE actually comes fitted with air suspension. The other models, the lesser models, this is basically the flagship model of the I-Pace range. Non-HSE models come with regular coil springs. So air suspension, actually you might think that, dude, it's expensive to maintain. And guess what? I did ask a Jaguar representative earlier, and it roughly costs just about 4,000 ringgit per suspension. I know what you're thinking, hey, that's still 16,000 ringgit, bro. But there's very little to no chance of all 4 suspensions failing at the same time. Regular maintenance, actually, an EV, there's hardly anything to maintain. This is one of those just get in, make sure it's charged kind of car, just drive regularly, and I think you'll be a very happy person. But if you're driving a lot of long distance, you know, KL Penang, KL Johor and such, life might be a little bit more complicated because of charging infrastructure and such. But other than that, if you're just looking for an everyday car to go about, this is fantastic. The I-Pace also comes with drive modes. I know that's no big deal, but get this, it comes with one drive mode called dynamic, okay? Something like what Audi has, but this is an EV, so EVs don't make a lot of noise. But in dynamic, I hope you can hear this, I'm gonna put my foot down. Whoa, sounds like a V8. And the thing about when you, oh man, I can't help myself. And the thing about dynamic mode is it stiffens the suspension as well. So makes it feel a lot more sporty, but it's not trashy. It doesn't crash over the roads, and it just minimizes body roll, gives you a little bit more control over the car. If you're going over bad roads, you may not want to be in this mode, but my God, performance, it's just fantastic. This is a Jaguar, and it drives like a Jaguar. It's such a nice car to drive, there's no doubt about it. Dynamic mode just brings out the best in the I-Pace. So what about the other modes though? So I press this and I go into comfort. So let's see, there's eco, there's rain, ice and snow. I don't want to be there, don't want to touch that. There's eco, there's comfort, and there's dynamic. So basically there's 4 modes lah. So I'm going to go into comfort mode right now, and this basically softens everything up, you know, makes it feel more comfortable and such. And this is basically your everyday go-to mode. Now in this mode also, the suspension setting softens up, but besides that, the I-Pace also comes with active noise cancellation. Now it works very much like that of a Lexus. See, it works in conjunction with the onboard Meridian speakers. However, it only works when the when the audio is turned on. So if the audio is turned off, well, if you're driving around with the audio turned off, the active noise cancellation is not going to work. And it works, the louder your music is, the better it works, so I was told. Besides being incredibly powerful and fun to drive, besides being quite engaging, because let's face it, 400 PS and 696 Newton meters of torque is no joke, right? It's still quite fun, and it makes some fancy noises too in dynamic mode. But besides all of that, the Jaguar I-Pace is also designed for efficiency. I mean, come on, it's an EV, right? But the thing about EVs is that they can lose power quite quickly. As soon as you start putting your foot down or having fun with all that power, you lose power quite quickly. That means you lose range as well. But besides that though, the Jaguar I-Pace has some tricks up its sleeve in the mode of something called vehicle creep. Now, vehicle creep and regenerative braking, what this basically does is that it works in the same way that Volvo's one pedal drive system does. I shot a video on that previously, so I'll add a link to that video somewhere in the screen over here. So what this does is, as soon as you take your foot off the accelerator pedal, it starts regenerating the battery. So it starts sending juice back into the battery as well. And because it has this high or low function over here, it says select regenerative braking level. So if it's on high like it is now, it will send more power back into the battery to actually regenerate it quicker. The only thing about that is, as soon as you take your foot off, you'll face something, you'll experience something called a very it's called a dive, right? So the higher the regenerative braking, the more dive you get, but the more power that is sent back into the battery, so the quicker it powers up. Now this actually is great for when you're driving in an urban environment and such. Another feature is called low power mode. Now low power mode is good for when you are actually running out of power, running out of battery charge, running out of range and such. Now low power mode basically doesn't let you cool the cabin, it turns off the air conditioning, it turns off the heating, it turns off all of this. I mean, we Malaysians don't really deal with heat, but still. It turns off all of this to conserve power, giving you more range. So in that sense, the Jaguar I-Pace does have a lot of features, making it quite efficient besides being fun to drive. Now there's no doubt that the Jaguar I-Pace is an insanely nice car. The interior is amazing, it drives really fun as well, and that dynamic mode just brings out the best. It brings out the Jaguar in the I-Pace. But it's not exactly cheap either at 498,800 ringgit. Wow, that's actually quite a bit of coin. But imagine this. This is ultimately a Jaguar. Even though they are Korean cars and Japanese EVs as well as Chinese EVs that give you better range for cheaper, it's still not a Jaguar. The amount of things that it has inside, the Meridian sound system, the air suspension, all of that actually gives the Jaguar its character. The power of 400 PS and 696 Newton meters of torque is just fantastic. Even though it takes up a lot of electric power, it's still very fun to drive. I couldn't help but put down my right foot every chance I got, because that's how fun the Jaguar I-Pace actually is. I'll let you decide whether it's actually value for money. But hey, like they say, if you really got to think about it, then perhaps the Jaguar I-Pace is not for you. But anyway, if I had the money, it's definitely the car for me. Thank you for watching, and do consider subscribing.